Thank you, Seth. Hi, everybody. I'm Sener. Thank you for the introduction. It's an honor to be here in front of undergrad students. I can scratch that from the bucket list. So thank you to all of you. Please tell me who's from Nebraska. Please raise your hand. Who's from out of state, Nebraska? And anybody out of the country? Originally, nobody? So we're all Americans. Okay, cool. Well, I am originally from Mexico. I had the privilege of growing up, coming here to the United States, because I had a tourist visa. Through my teens, I also had the privilege of being able to become a resident. It was not until 2016 when I decided to migrate and permanently live here in the States. I come from a very conservative background in Mexico, very small town. It used to be a really small town. Catholic family, Catholic school from elementary through college. When I finished high school, I started studying human capital development, which is human resources. I still do that on the side to being able to make a living. That's kind of the background of my historical background, right? My bio. Please feel free to ask questions at any time. I'm going to ask you some questions about, just like I just did. Anyway, so back in 2013, after growing up in contact with, of course, American music, I really liked Elvis when I was a kid. I was 10 years old when somebody gave me my first classics, Elvis classics, right? So that kind of changed my life. Then I remember another important musical moment for me was acquiring, when I was probably 12, the soundtrack for the movie The Crow. Do you remember that Brandon Lee movie? Who likes that movie? It's a kind of darkish movie, a lot of rock, mainly rock music. But there's a lot of bands there, right? There's Rage Against the Machine, there's Pantera. There's a lot of things that my group of teens or the kids I grew up with in Mexico, they weren't in touch with. As I grew, well, of course, MTV got to Mexico. So we were bombarded with everything, right? And then there was a split that became MTV LA, Latin America, and they started putting more music in Spanish. And then MTV became what it is now. Mostly reality shows, right? Anyway, but it was that was kind of my general music background. Also, I learned a lot of folk music with my parents. I come from, as I said, a conservative family, so my grandparents were always around. There was always somebody playing guitar, singing, kind of bohemian environment where, that kind of grew into me, like being a performer, being in front of the audience. Also in school, through elementary, I took some piano classes, solfege, and 14, 15, I started playing guitar. I continue playing guitar, I continue learning guitar. That's kind of on the classical side of instruments, that's my main instrument. And I also try to sing. Took some vocalization classes back in the day too. So when I decided, when Sener decided to be Sener? My name is, or my Catholic born name is José de Jesús Trujillo Hinojosa. That's too long. Too many R's and too many. So around my teens, I started, going out in the street and starting hanging out with other kids. They were doing graffiti tags. So you got to choose your name or they put your name. So I chose Sener. Just because I like that way it sounded, right? I like that it was kind of the center. It's without the T, right? The center of things. I've always liked to be the center of attention. I'm the youngest in my family, so probably that's where that comes from. So I did, but I didn't know what the meaning was. Recently, I think last year, somebody told me, no, Sener means fierce stronghold in Old Anglo-Saxon. So I like the meaning. And then I figured out it also means joyful man in Turkish. So I feel myself like that. Like I have a strong will and I'm also joyful by nature. So it fit perfectly. And why I tell you this, because it's right then when I chose, and I'm going to sit a minute. Right then when I chose to be Sener, that I realized I wanted to be in show business, right? Which is not easy. It's probably the hardest business of all, art and show business. You're all studying music, right? So who here wants to be like an artist on the stage? Please raise your hand. Raise it, because you see, I want to count them. 1, 2, 3. Okay, kind of half. So probably the other half wants to stay in teaching or behind the curtains like on production. Or somebody who didn't raise your hand initially, please tell me, like you. So you don't want to be in the stage, what would you like to do? What's your name, first of all?
Cameron.
Cameron, nice to meet you.
It's like the behind the scenes.
Behind the scenes?
Yeah.
Producing besides producing, what you can do is also editing, right? Music editing, or organizing events. Well, Sener does all that. In 2013, let me go back a little. In 2013, I started researching, and I'm going to use the word a lot. I started researching the contemporary scene in where I am from, in Guanajuato, Mexico. So in Guanajuato, it's the center. It has some similarities with Nebraska. It's right in the center of the country. There's no coasts. The town where I was from, the capital town, Guanajuato, is like I would say like Lincoln, a college town. So there was a scene, right? There was a scene of contemporary music. But I wanted to know what was going on. What were these guys using electronic stuff? And most of them also were using only electroacoustic instruments or acoustic instruments, like, air instruments, trombone, trumpet, saxophones, but playing them chaotically. And through my childhood in the State University, there was a radio station. There is a radio station. So every Wednesday, there was a show for a couple of hours show where they would play experimental music. How do you call it? Free jazz. They would play a lot of free jazz. All the cage stuff. So all the contemporary, or what it was called postmodern music, right? So that's, but I really wanted to know what all that was. Besides, I also had my crowd rock. I took a deep dive in crowd rock and all the progressive European and American rock, all the 1960s and all the 1970s music. But I realized that all that experimentation had other roots, right? That come from a more, academic path. So fast forward, again to a decade ago, I decided to I'm going to research and I'm going to interview these guys because I wanted to be doing what they were doing. But I would still call myself a researcher, right? So I started researching. I started going to, where all those joints in the city is called Guanajuato. So all those bars with experimental music. There's a big festival over there called Cervantino, Festival Cervantino, every October. Right now, it's a national party, and it's an arts, a contemporary arts festival. So while seeing all this, I started interviewing some of them, and it wasn't easy. Some artists don't want to be interviewed. Some artists don't want to share information. So I had to, they had to see me there and taking video and kind of doing a registry of what they were doing. In the same festivals, and this same artists, this same group of artists, they started doing smaller festivals where they would give workshops. So I started attending to those workshops. One of the first ones I had was audio editing with Audacity. Another one was Pure Data from a Brazilian teacher, André Damião, who went there. And I'll start showing you some of that stuff in a minute. So my point is that I had to be looking for that, for all that information. Gratefully, you will have that all here. You have, I mean, your teachers are providing you with all that information. And I'm sure your cohorts, among yourselves, your groups, the best thing you can do is share information, share music. That's kind of, if you ask me who did I really learn music from, it was my friends in high school and through college. So kind of, I have to thank them to be able to perform and have developed the year I have to be where I'm at. Anyway, so in 2016, I moved here to the United States, and I continued doing that. Back a year before that, we created a net label in Mexico called EAC. So that's what we have on screen right now. This is my first EP. You got to think that in Mexico, it's very different than here, right? Of course, there's talking about income, right? So for here, it's easier, at least, go to save your money to get some pedals to buy. And probably after a year, you could have 3-4 pedals. Mexico would take you a whole year to buy just one, just to compare something. So that was one of the main things I decided, you know what, I'm going to the United States. I'm going to do this faster. If I am there, there's more capitalism. I'll have access to more money, and this is going to help me to get there faster. And it did. As I said at the beginning, I was very privileged, right? Not everybody has the opportunity to know a little bit of what I know and then put it in practice. So when we created this net label, our benchmark, do you know what the word benchmark means? Who? You said yes, but somebody said something here. It's like a goal, right? That's your benchmark. So it's a marketing word. So what's EAC Records benchmark? Warp Records. Who knows Warp Records? You tell me. Where is it from? Do you know where Warp Records is? Who knows where Warp Records is from? It's from England, right? It's from England, yes. Who has played in, that was easy, right? If it's not from USA, it's from England, right? But can you give me a big name from Warp Records? Aphex Twin. Who loves Aphex Twin? Who knows Aphex Twin? Okay, for electronic music and experimental electronic music, Aphex Twin is one of the big ones. He just released a new album this year, a few months ago. It's an excellent album. And it's a lot of glitch, and he's now using AI also to produce his visuals and also music. Anyway, so those were our benchmarks. Back in 2015, when we opened EAC Records, our benchmark was Warp Records. Things have changed a lot, right? In the last 10 years, even in the last year has happened many things that in the last decade didn't. So, of course, we're not at the level to produce, we don't manufacture those albums, but we put them online in Bandcamp. The first thing we did was we made an open call to do a compilation, and I'm gonna show you the results of that. I met ROPO. His name is Rodrigo. I met him, the guy who made this song. I met him. He was a performer at one of the festivals that I helped produce in Mexico. He used to play with another guy on a techno collective, but this is his experimental side. So what EAC means, it's electroacoustic conscious. Okay, in English, that's what it means. But in Spanish, kind of has a double meaning, right? In Spanish, it's EAC, it's Estado Alterado de Conciencia, which means altered state of conscious in Spanish. And the reason is because music produces that. Sound produces that. A sound frequency, a sound wave can hypnotize you, can put you to sleep or wake you up. It's probably very difficult to put in words what actually sound is. But what it is actually is movement among molecules, right? It's a force that moves those molecules, and the result of that movement is the sound we hear. It's hard for me to explain. I hope Seth gives us a correct what sound means. Anyway, so I started meeting all these artists, and that just by interviewing them. Of course, not all of their interviews we published. We opened a web page for that purpose. That web page was called Digitart MX. So here it is. We still have a Facebook for that Digitart page. And here you see some of the events we did. For example, this was a workshop. This was back in 2014. And precisely we were teaching how to do a small synthesizer that I will show you. I started doing that. As a child, I always wanted to do electronics, but I didn't want to be an electric engineer or an industrial engineer or something like that. So this also allowed me to explore that path that I liked as a child. So I started learning how to do synthesizers. And the best way to learn something is to teach it. So with this microchip, which is a 5560, is anybody familiar with that yet? So with this microchip that you have on screen, I'm going to show you the noise you can make. Okay. So with that 5560, you can do this. Oh my God, it's asking me to verify my information. Well, I'll get to it in a second. Bear with me, okay? Anyway, well, before I show you that, another one of my big influences that I had the chance to interview was this guy that I'm about to show you. His name is Arcangel Constantini. I had the chance to interview him because he gave a little concert in a coffee shop in Mexico. I think his parents or his grandparents are from Italy, hence the last name Constantini. What he does is he uses or he researches the interaction of analogic sources to produce electronic sound. For example, he uses light, he uses the radio frequencies that are in the air or in the environment to catch them and then produce sound. What I'm about to show you is a synthesizer, or not a synthesizer because it's not actually digital synthesis, but he is scanning light frequencies to produce sound. So that's just an example of what the kind of things that I caused an impact, or the artists that I was telling you I was trying to research and find out what exactly what they were doing. That it's, for me, this goes beyond just contemporary art. So it's a transductor. It's a dispositive that can convert a signal into another. In this case, it's transduce a light signal into sound. So for me, this goes beyond contemporary art. This goes beyond postmodern art. So I was really trying to find what the hell is this, right? And then I came in contact with the concept post-digital. So something post-digital is something that it's not beyond the 0 and the 1, right? The digits. Digital, it's also our digits, our fingers, right? So it's also something that it's beyond our senses. So it's something more complex. There's other artists who have researched the concept post-digital. So I came to figure out that what I was researching was post-digital art.
Otra de las piezas con la que
There's
vamos a
Arcángel.
los conciertos de esta serie es óculo. Óculo es un proceso experimental.
I'm gonna forward a little.
2.5 volts y un circuito que se llama el Joule Stick. El Joule Stick es un circuito muy simple que utiliza un toroide, un transistor, y lo que hace es que le saca todo el.
He's explaining what I just told you. So those two lights, that chip that he was showing, he's using it to convert the light from those two lights into sound. And he's also using those antennas that you see. So if you want to research a little bit more about this artist, this is not only, I'm just showing you a little piece of what he does. He does many other things. He and another group of artists, that's really high pitch. Him and another group of artists even sent a small satellite to the moon. I don't know if he got it there, but they just sent a satellite to record sounds from space. So for that purpose, they created their own space association, like NASA. And they all dressed in, it was like also a performance, right? It was a performatic piece where they all dressed as astronauts, and then they launched the little satellite. Another work that caused an impact in me back in the day was the work from a collective called Realitat. They're from Mexico City, and they have exposed, just like Arcángel Constantini, they have exposed their works all over the world. So Realitat, they have a really nice piece of work. That this also, beyond post-digital, this also made me realize what the term sound art is. Can somebody here define what sound art is? Or what's the difference? Let me put it in a different perspective. What's the difference between sound art and music? Nobody? Yes, please.
I'll take a stab at it. I think the difference between music and sound art is sound art definitely incorporates more visuals. So I definitely think it's more along the lines of the video that you just showed us, where you're manipulating something other than sound to also manipulate sound. I think it's more along those lines.
You nail it. Please, an applause. That is exactly what sound art is. So you learned well. Whoever taught you that, at least that's my definition. And when somebody asks me what sound art is music or a performance where the visual part has a very heavy aspect of the action, which is that. That's what you said, right? Now, I'm going to show you what piece made me realize what sound art is, which falls under post-digital art. The piece is called National Anthem in Reverse. It's by Realidad. They are currently in Santa Barbara, California, but they're all from Mexico City. The name of the founder of Realidad, it's Juan Manuel Escalante. What we have to do is sit, watch, and smell how the things we cherish the most eventually start to rot over time under an environment carefully prepared to grow and cultivate its own decadence. This piece is the national anthem, the national Mexican anthem. It's a recording, and then the graphics for that recording that was reversed, they 3D printed it. So the sound was turned into a physical sculpture through 3D printing. This piece is from 2011, 5 years after the Mexican war on narcotraffic was declared. It was one of the deadliest years. So what he's trying to represent is precisely our national anthem. At some point, it calls Mexicans to war, right? And do we really want that? So it's a very, very critique, because to critique a national emblem that way, it's almost against the law, right? So, but he's proposing that, right? That how things that we cherish could rot through time. Anyway, so that was one of the pieces. I met this piece in 2012 at a festival in Mexico City called Off Festival. Talking about festivals, here in Omaha, this was synchronic, okay? When I came here to Omaha, as I said, I came here in 2016 to establish. It was not until 2018 that I approached to the scene, to the cultural local scene. And it was through a place, if you recall, you're probably quite young, it was called Outer Spaces on 13th Street. Who had the chance to go there? Yes. That was the first cultural environment or a community environment where I felt, oh, this people is doing something. Keep in mind, I'm 38, so most of the people that were there were 10 years younger than I. So I was seeing all this younger generation here in Omaha doing a lot of things. Because when I grew, as I said, coming here to Omaha in my childhood, I didn't see much scene, like contemporary art scene. It was not until then. I met Philip Coble there, one of the founders, and they did a small festival where they put together several groups of artists, and the challenge was to create a piece for that festival. And I had the chance to be with another two musicians, and we created a piece for that. Well, several songs for that we ended up presenting at the actual festival. Then the people in that environment talked to me. They started talking to me precisely about Omaha Under the Radar, and then Soundry. So I realized, wow, there's a really, really big sound art, experimental music here in Omaha from a decade at least. So that was, as I said, a synchronicity. That was very, very, very casual that I landed in a place that people were doing what I was doing already. So what I had to do, and that's why I ask you, if you want to be who wants to be in show business, because not only you have to create from your studio, from your room, from wherever, from your school or whatever, but you have to put yourself out there. And how do you put yourself out there? Yourself out there is going to the galleries, networking, creating connections. That's the only way. Unfortunately, art is that way. It's very, very uncommon that somebody who, just by the fact of being a good creator, will succeed. In art and music business, you still have to find those connections. And I say find them, you don't have to have them. You need to look for them. So I encourage you on that part to try to put your name out there and try to network. There's many, even groups on Facebook. I've met excellent artists through Facebook. There's Omaha Music Scene, I believe. There's even a group called Omaha Musicians Trying to Find Other Musicians, something like that. And I've made really good connections through there. Not all of them have fructified into projects, but at least you get to know that who's doing what. I'm gonna talk to you about soundarte.net now. So, as an artist, when do I started calling myself artist? It was not until the owner of a gallery here in Omaha. When was it? Probably 3 years ago. I was doing something there, an open mic. I went there it was at Apollon Art Gallery. And anybody went to Apollon? It was on Vinton Street. They closed last year. They also built a scene there. They had open mic sessions there, so I started going, and I would call myself a researcher. And it was not until the owner told me, "You're not only a researcher. You're giving workshops. You're having sessions, and so you're an actual artist." But for me, that insecurity was erased until somebody told me, "You are an artist," and I stopped calling myself a researcher. I'm still a researcher, but I am proud to say that now I get paid to perform. I don't live from it yet, but it is my goal to in the next 5 years to reach that. And you got to put up a plan, like a business plan, like you put your life in a plan, and you have to every step of the plan, like, make it to get to where you want to be. So it was 2016. We had DigiTart MX, the project I told you. Back then, it was still just a little agency. We were contacting musicians, and we did this compilations, and we connected with artists from other states and from South America. And then I will be, as I said, I will be very critique of this, because something happened to me, and that's one of the reasons that I ended up here in the United States. So in 2016, the town where I am from, they had a contemporary festival, a contemporary art festival, and what they did is they didn't invited us, but they invited all the collaborators, right? All the artists from my agency, and they did something that I felt that I couldn't compete with, because I couldn't compete with the government, right? With the state. If I wanted to do a festival, I needed capital. So that's one of the reasons I came here to the States. So for me, I would say this, guys and gals, but the American dream does exist still. You just need to first of all, believe it, and then do it. Because if you just sit and you just hear what the mainstream media is telling you all day, which is that the American dream doesn't exist, you're going to end up believing it. And for me, it's the opposite. For my parents was the opposite. For my grandparents was the opposite. So I hope for you it's also the opposite, because it still exists. So try to reach for those goals. Just have them clear. As long as you know what those goals are, you just continue doing something for 10 years. And there's a phrase I like, which is you just got to sit and wait for the time to come, right? But if you're going to be there, just do something while you're there. And that's what I've been doing. I've just been continuously doing this. As I said, I have my 40-hour job, 8 to 5. But then in my spare time, I put all my energy into this. So I migrated to after that slap in the face from the Cultural Institute of my town, I decided, you know what, I'm going to go to the States, I'm going to save some money, and I'm going to start doing festivals. So that's exactly what I did. Last year, I had my first performance here in Omaha under the radar in Caneco. That kind of was, I would say, like a catapult, that put me precisely under the radar here in Omaha. So as soon as that happened, I started having invitations from all over the place, here and even from Lincoln. I also had the chance, because I built my own synthesizers, I had the chance to go to Kansas City to a maker fair. There's a maker movement that kind of got paused because of the pandemic, but we're trying to reignite it, right? So DigitartMX, I was partnered with other friends in Mexico. It was a year and a half ago that I refounded it. I rebranded it to soundarte.net. I'm going to tell you, because we don't have much time. We have 10 minutes. I'm going to go really quick through this. So soundarte.net right now is not an agency, it's a company. So what we do is we produce experiences, right? The last experience that we produced was last Wednesday at Reformed Love. We had 4 artists, 2 out-of-state artists. Ana Paula Santana, she actually performed in Caneco last year. Ana Paula was a sound art resident here in Bemis. You also have Bemis here. You also have the Union, not only Caneco. Which other institution am I missing that it's also doing a lot of sound art and post-digital? Do you recall any? I'm probably not missing any then. Yes, Bemis? You said Bemis? Sosha and Ana Paula are both alumni from Bemis. Lee Riggs, it's another excellent contemporary musician. And Lillian Kay, it's also, I think she's a graduate from here, right? Mm-hmm. Some of you might know them. Okapi got a hold of us. Actually, Okapi is a duet. It's bass. What is it? It's 2 instruments. Cello and bass. Yes, cello and bass. They're a couple, and they played here at the Sydney. These are our most recent ones. This one is so far the biggest event that I've produced. I had the chance to work at Benson Theater it's pronounced Marra Uyeya. It's, let me show you what it is. So that guy that it's playing, it's a shaman from Mexico, from the Wixárika culture. They are the ones who have the peyote ritual in the desert. He tried to get his passport. He went to the government and to the government office. They denied his passport because he didn't have his ID. You gotta think, he's a native, right? So when he was born, he didn't went through the same things like, get a birth certificate and all that. So he got all that when he was an adult. So he showed all his paperwork to the government and they denied his passport, so he couldn't make it over here. Well, imagine if they denied his passport, the try for a tourist visa is almost impossible, right? So what we did is we rented a theater in Mexico and we recorded him holographically live. Well, we recorded him and then we projected him inside Benson Theater holographically. So what we were doing there was not only changing the concepts of what a border means, but also trying to go beyond our reality, which is also falls under the post-digital concept of art or culture. Any questions so far? No? So Marauyella means the deer's path. What those tribes do is they follow the deer throughout all the states. It's a pilgrimage that lasts several months. They've been doing that for thousands of years, and they continue doing it. So what they projected on that day was trying to show a little bit of their culture, of what their pilgrimage means. Anyway, no questions so far? No? Okay. Okay, because I had the last 5 minutes for questions. Oh, yes, you do? Sorry. Yes.
I was wondering why you chose Omaha.
Good question. Thank you. Thank you for asking that. I have relatives here. An older brother. That's pretty much, when I got here, he obviously was who helped me to establish. I also have family in Kansas. Actually, the town I grew up coming is Hutchinson, Kansas. But it was, as I said, a great coincidence that here in Omaha was already all this happening. With all the group, also somebody I can't forget mentioning is Project, No Coast Noise Collective. They're also, when I met those guys, when I met Joe Kodrick's, which is, you saw the Alphabetics EP, is Joe Kodrick's EP, he's the founder of No Coast Noise Collective, and he's also one of the minds behind Noise Fest. So when I realized all these people was doing similar things to we started getting together precisely at Project or other venues, right? My studio is in Benson at Pet Shop, so we would have also sessions there. So the scene has been consolidating in the last couple of years with all of us, and of course you, because I've seen many, many familiar faces that people from here go to these venues. The way we put it is we want to do Omaha the new mecca of sound art, like worldwide. Mexico City has established itself as a not big, but huge scene, because there's a lot of people from all over Europe and the US, Australia, even Asia that go to Mexico City for sound art and post-digital art. But I think Omaha has, it's in the middle of the country. It has access to cities, bigger cities also in an 8-hour drive radius. So it has many, many points that make it like the perfect place for that to happen. Other questions? Yes, please.
So you mentioned that you do make money out of your music now, but it's not enough to support yourself. So what do you do in the meantime so that you can get that?
So as I said, I have an 8-to-5 job. My title is called Talent Partner. So I work for HR. I hire people for the company that I work for. I like it because somehow when I invite artists, it's kind of doing the same thing. We invite artists. We get their tickets, their hotel, and that, in my job, I hire candidates for medical industry. So it's the same when you're taking a candidate to another state, and so it's in the talent business. But my goal is in the next 5 to 10 years, consolidate my company worldwide, since we also have presence in Mexico, and go through that path. Thank you for asking.
You might have mentioned it, but what are the steps that you took to create that label that you have?
Excellent question, and I'm glad you bring that up because it was not my idea. I initially had my little agency, Digitart MX, that what we wanted with that was to make events, right? To produce events and get money for us, get money for the artist. So one of these artists who went to one of the workshops we did, he realized we had mindsets in common, and that what we were doing was particular, like different. So my friend Luis Sol, who came for Noise Fest this year, he was the only Mexican who actually performed on stage in Noise Fest. He is the one who I think we were jamming in my house, and he told me, you know what, we should do a net label. And our first benchmark was WOS. It's We Only Share. It's a Mexico City net label. And they only produce EPs and compilations. Produce a big album, like a 10, 12 songs album, it's like bigger business. There's a lot involved there. So we decided we're only going to produce EPs and compilations. The compilations are open calls. Like all the money we get from Bandcamp goes directly to the artist, and whatever money we get from compilations goes to produce more events. And that's specified on the agreements we have with the artist. That's another thing. As the thing grow, we're not kind of making real money, I'll be honest. But you have to, you get it to a point where you have to start doing it right. So we start to getting into agreements and contracts, and hey, we need to get advice from a lawyer and things like that. So that's another one of the reasons I haven't kind of jumped into it, because it's a lot of work. You have to build a team. Yes.